There are a lot of different agents in Valorant that all have unique ways of affecting each match, so don't worry if you're not familiar with them all, that's totally understandable. In this video, I'll be going through every agent currently available, showing you each of their abilities so that you know what you're up against next time they're on the enemy team. Jett is a duelist, which means that her role in the team is to contest the other team in key areas and rack up a lot of eliminations. Her abilities include a cloud that she can throw to block vision, being able to propel herself up in the air much higher than anyone else, and then also being able to propel herself in any direction in order to get there faster. Her ultimate is called Blade Storm and allows the player to throw extremely accurate throwing knives that deal huge damage. Omen's role is to be a controller, meaning that his job is to take control of areas by blocking enemy vision and forcing them into choke points. Omen does this by teleporting across the map, shrouding vision and hearing with his blinding orb, and then marking locations where his shadow orb will land, blocking off vision around the specific area targeted. His ultimate allows him to pull up a map and teleport to wherever he wants. This does take 4 seconds to do and can be cancelled by shooting his shadow while teleporting, but if used correctly, this is the ultimate way to flank the enemy. Phoenix is a duelist and takes down his enemies by using his flame walls to provide cover and damage to opposition players passing through. He also has a blinding orb that he can throw around corners to blind enemies before engaging. Then his signature is a fireball that explodes on the ground, creating an area of effect where enemies are damaged but he is healed. And this can heal up to 50 of his HP. Finally, his ultimate allows him to place a marker on the ground before engaging in a gunfight, so that if he's eliminated, he will simply rewind back to the marker and have a second chance at the fight. Reyna is a duelist with an interesting twist. After eliminating enemies, they will leave behind a soul orb for 3 seconds, which Reyna can absorb to gain back some health. Her other abilities include consuming a soul orb to become invincible briefly, and a blinding eye that can be cast into an area and will blind any players who look at it. Her ultimate will send her into a frenzy, where she'll have 15% faster firing rate, equip, and reload speed. Sage is a sentinel, which means her role in the team is to support in any way she can. Whether that's by healing her teammates, placing down walls to block off flankers or bomb sites, or using her slow orb to create an area on the floor where enemies are slowed down if they pass through it. Her ultimate allows her to fully revive a fallen teammate all the way back up to full HP, so she can be extremely instrumental to a team if used correctly. Sova's role as an initiator is to gain intel on the opposition team's location before the duelists run into attack. He does this by using his recon darts, which can be placed in any location on the map using his bow, and these will seek out enemies and highlight them in red for your entire team to see. Sova also has access to a similar dart which will explode with an electric shock on impact, causing an area of effect, damaging the opponents. His owl drone can also be flown into enemy areas to hit them with marking darts, making them visible to his team. His ultimate will give him the ability to fire extremely powerful energy blasts through any walls, which, if they manage to hit a target, will reveal their location as well, making for an easy elimination. Viper is a controller who uses a chemical launcher to damage enemies and force them to take 200% damage from other sources whilst inside its area of effect. She also has access to a poison cloud that will obscure vision, however it will slowly run out of fuel after use, but can be recharged and reused. Her toxic screen also uses this fuel and can be placed to block off vision for enemies and provide a pathway for her team. Going through this wall will cause poison damage for her enemies as well. Her ultimate is called Viper's Pit, which will create a huge area of effect where players' vision and health are affected when inside. Astra is a controller who can enter an astral form, allowing her to place down stars in certain locations, which can then be activated to create a cloud to obscure vision. These stars can also be used to concuss enemies in the vicinity, but will take a brief moment to charge before detonating, only for the star to then explode and cause the players affected to be more vulnerable. Her ultimate will then create a huge wall on the map that cannot be shot or seen through by either team. Breach is an initiator who can fire charges through walls that will damage, concuss, and blind enemies, while also being able to fire a line of energy that will concuss anyone in its path. His ultimate is similar to his fault line ability, which concusses enemies within its path. However, it will create a much larger area of effect, which gets wider as it's dispersed. Also, when enemies are hit by this, they're not only stunned, but they're thrown up into the air as well, making them a lot easier to take out. Chamber is a sentinel whose strengths include being able to locate and slow down enemies, having access to an extremely strong pistol which will deal great damage, and having the ability to place 2 teleportation points where he can move between freely. These points can also be picked up and moved. His ultimate gives him an incredibly powerful sniper rifle which will eliminate enemies with any direct hit, and will also slow enemy players down in the vicinity. Fade is an initiator who can send out a prowler to lock onto enemies and blur their vision, use a projectile to hold anyone hit by it in place and disrupt their hearing whilst decaying them, and can also throw an orb into an area which will then explode and reveal any enemies in its line of sight. Her ultimate can be used to unleash a wave of energy which will mark any players caught in it, deafen them, and also cause them to decay. Harbor is a controller whose abilities include using a wave of water to slow enemies down, being able to place down a water shield that will block enemy bullets, and placing a wall of water which can block vision and slow enemy players down when they pass through. His ultimate allows him to create a geyser pool on the ground, with any players in the vicinity being hit with multiple geyser strikes that will concuss them. KO is an initiator who can throw fragments onto the ground which explode multiple times, causing more damage the closer you are to it. He also has access to a flash grenade which will blind anyone who is hit by it, and can also throw a blade down which will explode, creating an area of effect where players inside will be suppressed. His ultimate will cause waves of suppression energy that emit from his location, and will suppress anyone hit by them, and he also has a combat stim which he can use in this time as well. Killjoy is a sentinel and can throw out a bot that will hunt down enemies and make them vulnerable. She can also throw out a nano swarm grenade which will be invisible to enemies when it lands. It will then deploy a swarm of nanobots that can cause damage to those in the area. Killjoy's signature ability is her turret, which can be placed down to hit enemies within a 180-degree cone. Her ultimate is called Lockdown and will create a large area where players inside it are detained, however this can be destroyed by enemies. Neon is a duelist who is extremely aggressive. Her fast lane ability allows her to create two walls either side of her crosshairs which extend to where she's targeted. These block vision and create a pathway for her and her teammates. Then she has her signature, which allows her to run at a much quicker speed than usual, but can only be used for 10 seconds maximum at a time. Her relay bolt will create a small blast that will concuss enemies hit by it and can be bounced off walls to get some good angles. Neon's ultimate is called Overdrive and allows her to move at her max speed while shooting lightning from her fingers. Then once you take an enemy down with the lightning, it will reset the charge meter. Raze is a duelist who can throw blast packs onto surfaces, which can then later be detonated to cause damage to enemies. She also has a grenade that will explode and throw out smaller grenades which can cause damage as well. Then her boombot can be deployed to track down an enemy and detonate on impact, causing a lot of damage. Her ultimate then gives her access to an extremely powerful rocket launcher that can be fired freely. Skye is an initiator with the ability to unleash a tiger which she controls to hunt down enemies, and will deal damage as well as concussing them. She can also heal teammates in her vicinity and has a hawk that she can throw out to flash enemy players, blocking their vision. Her ultimate will send out 3 seekers that track down enemies and will near sight them if they reach their target. Yoru is a duelist and can send out decoys of himself to bait enemies into engaging and giving up their location. He can also fire an orb that will blind anyone who looks at it once it detonates, and can send out a marker which he can then teleport to at any time. These markers can either be stationary or constantly moving in a straight line. His ultimate also allows him to become invisible and invincible for a short period of time. Brimstone is a controller who can deploy a stim beacon which will create an area where he and his teammates will have a 15% buff to their speed and rate of fire. He can also launch incendiary grenades that will explode once they hit the floor and cause damage to anyone close to them. Then he can also place long-lasting smoke clouds in up to 3 different locations on the map. His ultimate gives him the ability to select an area of the map and then hit it with a large orbital strike that deals high damage over time to any players affected by it. Cypher is a sentinel who can prevent flanking opposition with trap wires that, if triggered, will slow the enemy down and mark them out for all of your team. He can also throw down a cyber cage that will block vision and create a sound when entered. Then his signature ability allows him to place a camera onto the map, which he can use to spy on enemies and mark them out to his team. His ultimate can be used on a fallen enemy and will reveal the location of every enemy player all at once. If this video helped you understand what each agent does in Valorant, then you need to watch our other tutorials, which I've put on screen for you now.